Okay, so hello everyone. This is third episode of Seen How Many, which is our podcast series at Near-Balkan, the English podcast series that we do with Morgan, who's in from South Africa. Currently where?
Currently in Port Alfred, which is the Eastern Cape of South Africa, spending some time with my family, who I haven't seen in quite a while. Obviously, because I've been gallivanting with Near-Balkan and co in France.
Yeah, during the summertime that we're going to talk about, and also last year's time, and I'm Matthias from Marseille now currently, and I'm out here studying as an exchange student at Beaux-Arts, which is like the fine arts / design university in Marseille. I'm studying media, and that's about it. And so in this podcast, we're talking about our experiences on an exchange project, a youth mobility project, or more like an art residency. Myself for the past 3, Morgan for the past 2 years, have taken part in independent short film productions, low budget, no budget, and we're trying to hook you in by the ups and downs of these productions, in the atmosphere and in the vibes of doing these, developing and shooting and editing these short movies. Yes, we've had 2 episodes. What did we talk about, Morgan?
Yes, yeah. Well, we began with some interesting points on how to begin filmmaking and where to find some inspiration through our environment and the current scenes playing out in our lives, and then how to briefly began interesting how to develop characters.
Yeah. The most important thing that we're gonna start this episode from is the brainstorming, the plotting, or after the plotting. What happens after the plotting when the writers find the exact scheme, the exact story that happens around them, usually around them. If it's an honest and true story, something that they actually experienced and something that they, by the patterns, social, psychological, like community or one-on-one, person-to-person patterns that they want to tell the future audience, the public, about. And so when we find that, as we told, it's a plotting conspiracy kind of meeting where we use code names because all the people are around us that we actually write about. But it's not like anything wrong. It's more like the honest depiction of the flaws that we as humans have, and the really difficult trial of trying to find the segment that talks about a certain kind of hypocrisy. And for every plot, it's hypocrisy, because the most interesting characters are those that we have to and need to talk about, because otherwise we could talk about anything, it wouldn't be interesting. So the interesting part is our flaws to the people, and to talk about hypocrisy, it's something that the people, the characters themselves don't admit to themselves, and that's why it's very, very interesting, because it's something that they don't know and the others around them don't know, because it's not explicitly told. And so it's something to observe through actions and mostly through subtextual, implicit actions and language. Yes, but before all this,
Yes, well, also
go ahead.
Yeah, well, of course, the hypocrisy comes in probably through the conflict between what we were talking about last episode with the motivations, the wants, and the needs of the characters. Obviously,
Yeah.
that takes a while to contemplate on.
Yes, and exactly with this, we're going to continue after telling a few words about Near-Balkan itself. So the platform that we're doing this podcast for, and that I personally have been working on for 2 years, Near-Balkan is a filmmakers community platform online. The sole purpose of its existence is that we are not creative really anymore, especially those that are making the movies and that get to make the movies, even if those are like low budget, no budget short movies like we do and we have experience in, or even if these are huge, like high multi-million dollar productions of short or feature length movies or series. Most of the times we're living in because we're living in the era of safe, less risky film production. Most of the times we're using patterns that are very factory-like. We are trying to construct money-making machines, box office productions, entertainment, which is, I'd say, pure, but no, it isn't. It's filthy as it can be, with no imagination, no honesty, damp, flat characters, and yeah, such. And so
And
this
stagnant narratives, maybe.
yes, most of the time. And this creates a need right in the moment where most creatives who are just out of university or like outside aspirants, they don't really have the chance to, without any like nepotism, without any already existing networks, to just hop in the business and start to work on productions. And this is exactly the field that just got decentralized in the past 20, 30 years because of like rather 20, 15 years, where the digital equipment is now affordable, when all the editing software is now affordable. It's online, it's right there. DaVinci Resolve, most common like community editing software is free for most. It has the whole suite, so it's like editing, labeling, editing, effects, virtual and sound effects, and rendering all together. We have cheap, really cheap camera and camera like rigging equipment, all the Steadicams, all the cages, all the stands, and all of these things are now really, really affordable. I mean, not for the average person, but if you're really focused as a team on something to do, you don't need a whole studio budget to produce a film. And most importantly, you don't need the stock anymore to shoot the film on, because most of the times it's a hard drive, an SSD, or some digital format cards that you record your stuff on. So especially in this era where everything should be decentralized and affordable, the only thing left in the showbiz is the actual show business, the market that is impossible to enter into. And so exactly for this is some kind of a solution. Near-Balkan, which again I've been and the team has been working on for 2 years now, is trying to give a platform to those filmmakers, like everyone, even those in the showbiz and those that are independent, just fresh out of university and outside aspirants, who have ideas, who have great ideas that might be like feasible in the market, but that never get heard really. And we're trying to, with the platform, create a competition amongst these ideas. So every 2 months, we are selecting only one. It's like a film festival. It's a competition for a prize, but it's a constant competition that happens every 2 months. And if you lose, you can try again. The point of this is finally in the idea phase, we could compare the ideas, and all of us could focus and help one or just a few productions that really are the best, that really deserve to be heard. And the main problem in especially Eastern Europe, Hungary, where I'm from, is that we don't really help each other out. We are narcissistic, egotistical. We only help with those that we are the heads of or central parts of. But this way, we choose out of all the people, any people that apply with their ideas, the best one, and all would group into that project, help them financially on one hand, by purchasing premiere tickets for the soon-to-be winner production of the ongoing race, and premiere tickets that we can actually use half or a full year after the competition ends and the film pilot has been developed. And we could also be part of these production and we could let's say crew roles, cast roles. We could help out with locations, with ideas, with design tasks, all the Gesamtkunstwerk that is as an umbrella above a film production. So with nothing more to say, let's head into the topic. Morgan.
Yes, and the topic that we're facing today is how we translate our conspiring schemes into a good narrative. At least first stage after the brainstorming, where we managed to distill our character archetypes into workable characters into a narrative.
Yes. And you mentioned one of the, I think, most compelling character developing patterns, which is trauma, worldview, need, and want. How do you understand this? What do you understand of it? How is this scheme?
Well, what I understand of it is from the kind of exposition of the plot. Each character has an inciting problem which develops into a trauma, and from the trauma we see that a worldview develops that is in conversation with the trauma in the psychology of the character, which informs the character's need of course is how to deal with the trauma, which doesn't always end up happening in a narrative. And the want is normally based on the worldview, which normally acts in contrast to the need of the character.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In this scheme, there's like a short and a long run, and so as I understand, here you observe at the same time with the trauma and the worldview, the long run, the life of the character, the traumas, the like eternal and original motivations and flaws, and in the short run, which is the length of a story, the perspective of a story, we explain the need and the want in that scheme, in that plot for the characters. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to walk you through last try on a screenplay that we've done this summer. Okay, so it's the grid of that four aspects of the character themselves, and so these are the rows of the grid, and we also see the characters next to each other in the columns, and so this exact story was about, I'm not sure how to summarize it really in one sentence.
We could possibly say relational issues between the organizers of our little project and the group itself. Within the group, we kind of split into smaller factions where some of us felt more sidelined or less heard as a matter of diplomacy.
Yeah. So the main aim for this story, which is, well, in the plotting, in the brainstorming, we found, the structure of the story, but we didn't quite, catch the parts that the actual storyline will be about. So we didn't go as far to have that. And this development was like cut in half. So it's like only has gotten to the character development part, but that was complete. So in this phase, we're gonna run you through our characters. So for every story, according to Eric Edson's script doctor's ideas, has to have these character archetypes. These are less of archetypes and more of relations in between the characters and how they are perceived mostly by the hero, by the main perspective of how the story is told. And so in relation to the hero, which is the protagonist of a story, we should always advance from the other way around, find first the adversary, the people of the adversary, the people around them, and find always the furthest characters in relation to the hero as foil characters. It's not the words of Eric Edson, it's more of Sitfield again. A foil character is someone that is shaped around the hero. And if we imagine the hero as an invisible character, it's the clothing, it's a foil on the character, on the curves of a character that kind of describe where they are, where their boundaries are, where the borders are. And so it's really an important thing to mention that these are the boundaries of the characters. If the hero is invisible, as we have no experience with them, observing them as the viewers of a film, as the readers of a story, we need to have testing opportunities where this protagonist, where this hero is clashing with other people. And so the easiest way to describe these clashes is with the characters that are more on the opposite end of the spectrum on different topics and different grounds of
Or
life
different
challenges.
perspectives.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so of course. Another way to put that is you could say that the main character is only defined by things that are contrasted to.
Yeah. Most of the time in a movie, in a story, we need to talk about the flaw of a character. And so this is really a harsh debate. And in Manet in France, in the projects that we've been on, there's really no consensus, common understanding on whether the character needs to have a flaw or not. Well, what do you think, Morgan?
I think our main point of departure from the more conventional consensus in Manet is how we define a flaw. We are briefly working on another project for stage production, and it seemed that the main character in that production didn't have a flaw in the way we looked at things, in that the only flaw was naivety, and supposedly that isn't a flaw in the traditional opinion, because it can be altered throughout the course of a storyline. And maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what makes the flaw of a character, if it has to be something that can't be resolved within the story structure itself, or whether it can be something resolvable.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's see here. Just above this. Yeah. So the flaw of the character and the need for a flaw for a character comes from the telling of a story in the first place. Why do we tell a story? We discussed this in the previous episodes. We tell a story because we have something that the viewing audience, the public, our current postmodern, post-postmodern society doesn't necessarily know about. It can be a regional thing, though, so it can be something that only a nation, only a subculture understands. It doesn't have to be everyone. Like with a marketing campaign, you have your audience. the target audience. The point is, there are stories that are not obvious to the people. Like everyone, we have an average lifespan, but some have shorter lives, some have longer lives. But even though we have internet, this doesn't mean that everyone shares the same experiences through their shorter or longer lifespans. And apart from a lifespan, you're probably not at the end of yours, so you're still developing, you're still meeting these new ideologies, these new ideas, these new approaches, new perspectives. And so the point of telling a story is to, well, enlighten the audience in some way, if we're grasping it from the very beginning of telling stories. As the writer of genres, I always forget the name, called John Truby, the writer of the book Genres, puts it, everything that is around us, everything everything that we use language in, every verbal or written thing, and even fine arts and everything that we use symbols in, has a genre, or itself is a genre, as a medium. And so he puts it this way: if you think of lawyers, if you think of court trials, what you see there, the language of the law, that's a genre in some way. That's a genre in which we expect things to be told in a certain way, in a certain formula, in a certain shape. And so in the same way, going to the supermarket, seeing all the prices of items and seeing all the kind of like late advertisements on the boxes, or the design, the graphics and everything that's for the marketing, for the sales, that's a genre in some sense. And so the genre comes from one thing and one thing only: easier understanding in a world where there's too much information to digest. And so when there is too many things to digest, we try to simplify, to curve down every concept that we see. We try to explain them on easy, fundamental terms. And well, most of the time, which is like kind of the negative side of this, easy understandings, we try to find fundamental truths to everything. And that's not good, but we'll talk about like ambiguity and the like essential part or task of ambiguity in all of this. The point is, as we try to find these fundamental truths, we oversimplify everything that we run into, and we try to comfort ourselves, because that's the main reason, to understand everything that's around us, to interpret them. We do these processes to comfort ourselves that we are in control, or at least in understanding of what's gonna or what might happen to us, as for a basic animal instinct in the wild. And so while doing this, all the stories that we hear need to have some common language. So the point is, we need to be able to understand these simple truths, these general truths, these new informations, these new bits. These need to be told in a language that we already understand the words of. And so these languages themselves are the genres, because if we expect something to hear, expect something as a pattern, we can at least compare the differences to that pattern of some new information that we hear. When we tell a story, it's basically a new bit of information that might be useful, should be useful for the person that consumes it, but it needs to have this some pattern that the consumer can compare the new information to, in contrast to that pattern. And so we use these genres in the storytelling, and one genre or medium itself is filmmaking. And inside of these, all the genres of drama, of action movies, of romances, of crime movies, of thrillers, of horrors, of all of these genres, coming of age and etc., are languages inside all of this, of patterns that we can compare and build our stories upon and compare them to. And so the overall need is, showing the screen again, is to present something that's new to the person, new to the viewer, the audience. And so thus this has to be something that we ourselves don't necessarily understand as something obvious, because if it's something obvious, well, why would you
Then
want to
it's
hear
already
it
been
again?
written.
Yeah. So we talk about things that are not obvious, and things that are not obvious are usually something unrecognized. And so these things that we don't recognize are things that we usually fail to, and failing to recognize something is already a flaw. So this is where we get to the flaws. It's not about like blaming or shaming. It's us. It's the expose of an artist. It's it's the exposition of the person, of the human itself. And so this is why and how we get to the flaw of a character. And so the overall message of a story this way, like here in this instance, democracy or autocracy, is a problem, is a hypocrisy, is a flaw that the characters or the main character has to be the main character most of the time. Doesn't understand in themselves, don't understand in themselves. And so the log line of the story comes after this. The log line of a story is four things, one after another. The character with a character trait, a flaw, bumps into an accident, something, an incident that changes their position, that puts them in unease, and they have to get back to the state of comfort. But to get back, they are like directly under some kind of authority, and they have to defeat that authority to be able to get back to comfort. And to defeat it, they have to succeed in some way. So they have to have a goal, or if they don't succeed, there have to be consequences that apply to them. So it's like making a bet, something that happens in the quell of the story, before the story perspective. And so the character like makes a bet because the character has a flaw, has a trait to do so in a way that fits the character. And so the incident, the accident that happens is, for example, losing that bet and not being able to like pay off the stakes, not the stakes, but the lost bet. And so the goal in this way is to find a way to pay that off, or the stakes, the risk is that they might lose something as collateral, to put it in an example. And so after we have the log line, and it's always turning off by itself, then we can develop scenes and scenes inside scenes and directions and all of that for the story. And so it's usually 3 arcs, but we're going to talk about it some other time in the story, or we have already content where I explain it on the channel of Near-Balkan. In the curve of a story, there's usually 3 arcs. The first arc is getting out of comfort. The second arc, which is usually double the size of the first and the last arc, these are in the state of unease. The first half of the second arc is more of about the character not in the understanding yet of what they are into, and the second, the midpoint of the story, so the halftime, is when the character kind of grasps the thing, that the context, the understanding of the context of what they are involved in. And so in the second half of the second arc, it's about fighting the enemy, fighting the flaw with the understanding already of the character's flaw. And then comes the final third arc, which is getting back to the state of comfort, of ease. And so with this understanding, every scene or every sequence that is inside these arcs, of which in an actual like a standard feature length film of 128 minutes, there's usually 5 to 6 minute sequences, and of those, I'm not sure if I'm right, but there's like 13 of these sequences. And so inside of each, there has to happen one main thing. So inside a scene, inside a sequence, we have initial direction, opposing intent, exposition, characterization, and outcome. So it's really easy. That happens like 13 times in a feature-length film. In this short film, it only happens like 3 times. The character in a state of ease goes into it's a smaller like perspective inside the big scope of a story, so it's not the ease of character inside the entire story, but inside just a portion of it, a smaller ease. So inside of an ease, state of ease, they enter a situation, and the other characters, the situation that they get to learn, are opposing them in intents of what they want to do and how they want to do it. And so these oppositions have to be characterized. We have to understand the context of what the character enters, what the character's point of view is, what the opposing point of view is, or the obstacle. And so these have to clash in some way. And this clash happens already in the opposition when they understand each other. But the point is, there is like a dependency, the hierarchy, the dynamics of how one is more powerful, one intent, and the other is less powerful. And the exposition is based really on hypocrisy, because if hypocrisy is exposed, then something that these characters have done in like before the story, before this scene, that are not known to all the characters, or not even to the audience. These are revealed, these are exposed, and these like smaller flaws, these crimes for characters.
We could call them biases, maybe.
Bias, yeah, in some sense. So they, you mean that the characters themselves are biased?
Yes, well, of course. I mean, I would say that the initial direction is something that is illuminated by the exposition, by saying, well, these are the reasons why their intents are opposing, and after that has all been made sense of by the exposition, that leads into the characterization in some way.
Yeah. And the characterization is if we go with the bias, it's like describing the bias itself, kind of.
Yes.
So if we describe the bias, we need to reveal the reason it's a bias, and not the reason of the way of the subjectivity of the bias. We need to reveal it to the audience and to the characters' different objective understandings of something, usually the same thing, to each other, and to form some kind of an intersubjectivity. And so that is the phase of the exposition. And the rule of the exposition is that the hierarchy, the dependency, the dynamics that they have of power, one is more powerful, one is less, it has to be the exact opposite. So they have to, with the exposition, swap positions in some way. So the character that has more power in that position most of the time, there have to be something revealed of something hidden about them that they committed that puts them in the state of guilt most of the time. And so the other less powerful character becomes the moral authority that thus becomes more powerful in that situation. It's just one example, but a great one. And so the characterization part we described, it happens as a constant, but the outcome that happens after the exposition is something more interesting. So after this power shift, there has to happen something of a resolution. So when the
or a consequence, maybe.
A consequence, yeah, but it's a direct consequence, and it's a short-term consequence, because it's also, it's inside the scene, inside the length of a sequence, which is only like 5 to 6 minutes. Also, like it's the same in a short movie or a long one. A sequence that we also as a genre, as a language of audiences, we understand this way. So the outcome, the consequence, has to be inside the scene, and it's usually the easiest way to understand it is the like releasing of the tension. and we release
The punchline.
the punchline. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I describe this as a pattern for a joke also. It's not only for a scene, it's for a joke. When you want to tell a joke, you have to have an initial direction, you have to have some conflict, which is the opposing intent, and the punchline in a joke is exposition and outcome as the same phase. So there is nothing that comes after. Sometimes you hear jokes that have like double punchlines, then these are separated. The point is, after you set up a context, you have to counter that context, and you have to make it so that the countered context is so obvious that the laughter comes from, the release of this tension in an unexpected but afterwards seem to be obvious statement or circumstance. The point is, the difference between exposition and outcome is that the outcome is already in this state of released tension. When, for example, in Tarantino's movies, who's like really the master of releasing tension and building tension, initial direction is like a hook. You already have something that hooks you in. This is something that is uncertainty, like most of the time, or like every time. Uncertainty hooks the person in. Uncertainty in every kind of pattern. Uncertainty, even if the characters are not talking, you have to have something that, like subtextually, tells you that there is something of peril, something of unsure that might happen to the character that you're looking at, that you're watching the story of. And the opposing intent is like the physical manifestation of that problem, that's peril. And the exposition is like in a scene is just position where both parties get to grab like pistols, pointing at each other, pointing guns. And when you set up obstacles in the opposing intent phase, when you physicalize, when you have the manifestation of that problem, you usually set up a ticking clock, something that like sets deadline to the scene. So it's the problem that it's now obvious to you as the viewer. Still unsure. You have to be unsure to have that state of unease to be hooked in, but you have to have a deadline. So it's gonna like go off and have an effect on the protagonist. And then in this position of exposition, the Mexican standoff, so to say, has to happen. And the Mexican standoff. Yep, go ahead.
Yes, well, I mean, not to interrupt that thought, but you could also explain it with the idea of Chekhov's gun, where you introduce something and it has to go off by the end of the film.
Yeah, kind of that way. And so the point is, Chekhov's gun, as you describe, is just an object that these characters can use against each other. And these objects are not just simple objects. The important part is that these objects have subtextual information, stakes hidden inside them. I mean, like attached to their symbols, and so symbolic meanings. So they either are information of characters, information that few of them know, like these subjectives that we've talked about, these biases. These reveal these weapons, these objects, these Chekhov's guns, something to the story, something to the characters about the story, about the circumstances. So when talking about Tarantino, an exposition is when the Mexican standoff happens, when you're already in a point where the stakes, the biases are revealed, like all the hidden ones, also the characters, and the outcome is the release of the tension, where they actually like shoot each other. If we are talking about a Western, exposition is when you get to know that they were already pointing guns at each other, and outcome is when the triggers are pulled and guns are fired. And so this, if we're talking about a scene, needs to already establish the next scene, or needs to create a contrast
Setup.
where we can already cut to the next scene. A setup, yeah, from one to another. Yeah, that was the longer part for this, and now we are back to the characters themselves. For these scenes, for these stories, now we understand why they have to have a flaw, why they have to have biases, and now let's talk about their biases. Go ahead, Morgan.
Yes, of course. At least in this, we realized that the big conflict was a hierarchical struggle between, you could say, the protagonist who's trying to learn how to beat the system from within, and or at least to revolutionize a system which has grown stagnant, where on the one end the foil is a kind of more constricting system that promotes old ideals, and then the hero is trying to enlighten the other cast into a new way of thinking.
The contrast between the characters, the main contrast in the biases of these characters, so as we see here on this graphic of how these character relations are from the understanding of a hero, from the point of view of a hero. The adversary has to be established first, because the manifestation, the greatest point of exposition for a foil character or by a foil character is by juxtaposition. Yeah, there's no other or better way to put it. If the bigger the juxtaposition or the factor of the juxtaposition, the greater the reveal, or the easier the reveal is. And so we first had to establish the main contrast between the hero's bias and the adversary's bias. And so how does this look in this story?
Yes, well, of course, the biggest problem between the hero and many adversaries is the fact of authenticity, in a way, where the hero was trying to show an authentic problem, and he was suppressed by the other cast. Yeah, I would say that's it in a nutshell, as a beginning summary.
Okay. So in the perspective, in the scope of a story, the want is the easiest to describe here. So as we see, the hero has meaningful discourse and as a want, and so the adversary, the main adversary, has it wasn't described properly, but so is the want is justice without vocabulary, and the independent troublemakers.
We could say the supposition of justice, or the pretension of justice.
Yeah, and so there we have the flaw already. Yeah. So making justice, and so the independent troublemaker, who's also a really integral character in the story, is overdone worship. Okay, so it was as an independent vagabond character, the want here wasn't really clear. It was more like overemphasizing things for the sake of attention, or that kind of thing. That was drama balloon, if I put it.
Yes, of course. I believe that with this character, it was all about. I think this was our main instance of narcissism or hyperinflation on some point, where the character wants to over dramatize something of little importance.
Yeah, to have something to talk about, to have something to thematize, or that kind of thing, and
yes, and to distract from a real problem, the real conflict of the situation.
Knowing these, let's go deep into the characters. Before we go deep, what's the story arc? What's the main message of the story? The point is, the main aim here was to have the overall message to be democracy or autocracy, the understanding or the hypocrisy in not wanting to admit that some situations are not, some community situations and some person-to-person situations, dynamics are cannot be always be described with the scheme of with the patterns of democracy. Some decisions have to be made by some people in positions in authority, and so autocracy is something that most people fear. But in some dynamics, for example, as we talked about, that filmmaking, for example, art, where the decision is the art itself, there has to be someone that makes the final decisions, because democracy most of the time is not about like characteristic decisions. It's more about compromises. But art itself is
Yes, well,
the art of decision.
yes, well, of course. Although in a way, I do, I have come to disagree with that idea, because at least in kind of the political philosophy of democracy, it's not, in a way, it's not based in anarchy where everyone has equal say. It's more that people agree to give their power of decision making to another, who can then be the autocrat, if it can be believed. But then, of course, in the instance that we were basing the script upon, we could say that it was a failure to delegate power to one decision maker.
Yeah. But in that sense, yeah. So in that sense, autocracy is the position of one making the decision, and democracy in this understanding is where. So in autocracy, the representation is only of one, and in democracy, in that sense, the representation is of all. And so that was the main difference. And so the main misunderstanding was that if whether the representation has to be of all participants of a community in every situation, or there can be some situations where the representation is only of the one that is making the decisions. And so the main discourse was about, well, a story about a play, and on how the decision making, the creative decision making for that play should be made and should be done, and how the to-be director or the writer and how the crew can influence what the story is about and how it is. So the misunderstanding and the main conflict came from the telling of a story on a table read kind of occasion. Well, it wasn't a table read because it wasn't character dialogue driven thing. So it was only like a presentation meeting, a pitch meeting, where the writer already had material, which was more like a treatment, a short novel-like description of a story. Yeah, and then there was a meeting where the crew had to like add to that, had to ideate on how to like adapt that story, that short novel, to a form of a play. Yeah, that was it. And so there was the director present, and there was the writer present, and there was a crew that were like to be part of the production present. And so the setup was that, and here it's the democracy label, how we label the representation of all. The director decided to go on a round for everyone to express freely their opinions about the play and about the short novel mostly. And so the problem came from that the play was, well, it wasn't a play, and so it had to be adapted because it didn't have dialogue, it didn't have material, it was only like a draft in that short story like shape. And that the main flaw of this story was that it didn't have, the main character didn't have a flaw, or as I found a better way to describe it after, it just didn't admit, the story didn't admit that the character had a flaw, and so it made it a hypocritic story, because it was obvious that the character has a flaw, that the writer has a flaw, that she wants to tell about the character that portrays herself, but fails to do so because, I don't know, doesn't want to admit the problem, the flaw, and so it's like not an honest story. And so this, by intuition, not by rationale, by intuition, it was like discovered by everyone that read the story, and it's strange because seemingly the writer and the director didn't understand this, but what we knew and what we still know, I mean, it's quite obvious, is that they knew exactly this, but they didn't want to admit. And so this problem came from exactly from this point, because when everyone expressed their opinions, it hurt the writer, it hurt the director, like a third person in the place of the writer. I mean, like emphasizing with the writer, and so they were like deeply hurt just by the critique of the reveal, by the reveal of this dishonesty. Yeah, to put it simply.
Yes, and then we of course had to write about the problem as we saw it, and that led us to what did it lead us to?
Okay, that was a great segue. Yeah, so this led us to two fundamental like ones from the characters. But first, it's only the first part of a story, so we need to tell the later part because that's the interesting part. So it's like the setup, as we talked about the four parts of the log line. It's like the incident that happens. It's the incident of people telling their opinions to the writer, to the director, and they get offended. And so the goal and the risk, the stakes are only introduced then because these need to be like made concrete. And so we have to also use foil to describe these. It's not just like obvious telling. You have to use foil to subtextually describe what these are. And so the stakes and the goal was introduced after, when the wife of our director character was pulled in the story and was asked for their opinion, for her opinion on the situation itself, and not just the inner story that the writer wrote, and how the story inside the story was done, and how the crew reacted to that story. And so her opinion, as we described, was drum a balloon, like overemphasizing the relevance of that event. So the stakes and the goal came from this. So when this was described, the situation was made concrete. The offense, I mean, the them being hurt, the writer and director being hurt, came to be obvious. And so the goal was to release the tension, to find a common understanding of, okay, what happened, how did we get here, and what went wrong, and how are we going to go on, and how are we going to develop this story. So the goal, and on the superficial level, is how are we going to do the story, how are we going to do the play. And the stakes are like everyone gets offended by everyone, and everyone goes on to hate everyone else, or at least the two sides.
And then the out, yeah. Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, and then of course the outcome of all this offense is that the play never gets made because of the over democratization of the writing process.
Yes, because the flaw of the character, which we describe as Soufflé, so we gave them labels. Soufflé is the writer, Cookies is the wife, and Baklava was the writer of the play. And so the Soufflé character's main flaw is escapism, like the fear of conflict. The point that the character, he uses representation as like a democratic over-representation for everything, is that he wants to evade conflict. He wants to evade like debate even, and is only in for this what's called assertive dialogue, where people only tell critique in a way that is not hurting the others, but that has a great risk of not telling a critique at all. And so this is dishonesty, and it's a lie in itself, and it's just spiraling. It's a vicious circle. So he has the flaw of this escapism from harsh decisions, from conflict. And so the other has the flaw of insensitivity, like not sensing the stakes of situations, and yet overemphasizing them anyway, and not understanding the positions and wants, mostly positive and friendly ones of other people. Now we have to get to the hero of the story. So the hero in this case wasn't really personified. It was my understanding in some situations, but it wasn't really. So it was like this understanding, the point of view from which, in relation to play, cookies, and baklava, are these characters. Because the hero is the one that views them this way, views them as the character that is escapist, views them as the character of insensitive, and that we didn't talk about writer, but illiterate who wrote. So it's like the writer who writes naively because she doesn't want to admit to herself that the character she is trying to describe has flaws. So the hero is foiled by these. The hero is the one that makes up these characteristics for the others. So basically, the hero is the one that wants to release the tension, but rather than releasing, actually does quite the opposite thing, and that's the flaw of the hero. Hero creates the tension, so forms the tension, as he rather wants not to release it, but to expose it. And that's how it's done hypocritically there, because the exposition is harsh debate, it's clash, it's straight out war.
Yes, and of course the main issue was that we couldn't quite find a way to write about them in the diplomatic sense, of course, because we were identifying too much with our own hero, where we couldn't subvert the expectation or the allegory far enough to be palatable to the audience that we were catering for.
Well, it depends who the audience were. It's kind of, as we talked about last time, the writers are writing the story that's around them directly. So it depends whether the audience is the people that the story is about, or third person. And I think we weren't really this story was not directly for the people that were participating in it, because they couldn't quite handle it. That was the reason, mainly, in its entirety, that this production was cancelled. This development was cancelled. They didn't want to hear the story. They felt it was too biased. The problem was more suppressed, and so
suppression or oppression or snuffed out.
Yeah, and that's a problem. I mean, that's also part of the story, how the people that knew about or got to know about the story being developed reacted to it, but that was it. And so the tension wasn't released, and in real life, I mean. And so this is really interesting in the story on how something like this can be told. But this is a story for now, and this is how we got to it. And now let's talk about something that always comes here at this point of the story, when we have the scenes that we see here, that we have bits about. Just to read out loud a few, Biscuits gets involved in a democratized play development process. We talked about this. Baklava, the writer with background of the play, proposes her new story. Immediate cancellation on Vogue principle because of Baklava's background on demand by Seneki. Well, that's something that we haven't talked about. But anyway, Biscuit reacts too intensely against cancellation, Seneca's fast acceptance for vogue offered resentment, and script now needs to be rewritten to exclude baklava's characteristics. So it's really like in code language. The point is, as we see here as a description, meeting on the scheduling of a brainstorming for the play adaptation. It's just on how these notes or these segments are written. It's just draft points of how the story develops, how a scene develops. We haven't talked about this instance now, as I see, because this is like the prequel to what we've talked about, the actual like brainstorming for the adaptation of a story. The point is that the initial direction, the opposing intent, exposition, characterization, outcome, these are really just one sentence, like drafts need only these for you to go on and actually knowing the characters and what their flaws are, what their wants are, what their needs are, find points of clashing, like find points where one can act as a foil to another by the exposition of their biases. And so when we have these outlined, we go on and just like open final draft and start to write the story. But most of the time, it's really difficult in that phase to just write because you don't have it. I mean, you don't have the words. Now that you understand the relations and the dynamics of the characters, even if you find the clashing points, you don't know what to exactly put on as text, as dialogue on the page. And so this is a phase where it's the best just phase out. Watch some movies that can inspire the genre, the way of telling the story, because this is not about the genre so far. This is only about the story to be told. Now you have to find the language that your audience will understand, and then that has a pattern that you can contrast your story to. And so what we do with Morgan, or what we've done for the past at least 3 projects, but I could say even 4 with this half-done one, is that we start to talk about on these brainstormings where we find the plot, the conspiracy brainstorming, or the ones after where we define the characters. We start to talk about like great memories, experiences, watching movies and scenes that we really loved to see. The last time I remember we talked about Notting Hill and how Hugh Grant's character, which I really love, goes on to a scene of Horse and Hound where they ask him of what happens exactly.
What magazine he's with?
What magazine he's with?
Yes, well, of course he's wanting to visit his love interest at the hotel that she's in, but little does he know that he comes at the complete wrong time, because she's still holding a press conference with all the cast of the latest movie that she's been performing in, and he needs to make an excuse to see her, and of course he pretends to be a journalist for Horse and Hound.
Yes, and I'll try to play this moment of the movie.
So what did you think of the film?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was Close Encounters meet Jean de Florette.
I agree.
I'm sorry, I didn't get down what magazines you're from.
Time Out.
Great. And you're from?
Horse and Hound.
You've got 5 minutes.
Hi.
Hello.
I brought these, but clearly.
No, they're great. They're great.
I'm sorry about not ringing back. The whole 2 names concept was totally too much for my flatmate's pea-sized intellect.
No, it's a stupid privacy thing. I always pick a cartoon character. Last time I was Mrs. Bambi.
Everything all right?
Yes, thank you.
And you're from Horse and Hound? Good.
Is that so? Well.
So, I'll just fire away then, shall I? Right. The film's great, and I just was wondering whether you ever thought of having more horses in it.
Well, we would have liked to, but it was difficult, obviously being set in space.
Space, right? Yeah, obviously, very difficult. I'm so sorry. I arrived outside. They thrust this thing into my hand. I didn't.
No, it's my fault. I thought this would all be over by now. I just wanted to sort of apologize for the kissing thing. I seriously don't know what came over me, and I just wanted to make sure that you were fine about it.
Yeah. Absolutely fine.
Do remember that Miss Scott is also keen to talk about her next project, which is shooting later in the summer.
Ah, yes. Excellent. Any horses in that one? Or hounds, for that matter. Our readers are equally intrigued by both species.
It takes place on a submarine.
Oh. Or bad luck. But,
It remains a
if there were
classic.
horses in it, would you be riding them, or would you be getting a stunt horse double man thing? I'm a complete moron. I apologize. This is very weird. It's the sort of thing that happens in dreams, not in real life. I mean, good dreams. It's a dream, in fact, to see you again.
What happens next in the dream?
I suppose in the dream scenario, I just change my personality, because you can do that in dreams, and walk over and kiss the girl. And,
Time's up, I'm afraid. Did you get what you wanted?
Nearly.
Or maybe just one last question?
Sure.
Right. Are you busy tonight?
Yes.
Right.
Come in.
Oh,
It was nice to meet you.
Yes, and you.
Surreal, but nice.
Thank you. You are Horse and Hounds' favorite actress. You and Black Beauty. Tied.
Yeah.
perfect.
So the point is that in in this scene, the setup, or let's put it on the align the pattern to the scene.
He's coming to see Mrs. Wright, of course, and the oppressing intent is that he has to bow to something he never thought he'd have to. For of course he has no journalistic experience, otherwise he would have had a few more decent questions lined up.
Yeah, but the point is that he really wants to just ask her out because they bumped into each other, and there is an obvious power difference, a dynamic between them, as Julia Roberts' character is a famous actress, a high profile, really inapproachable, and so Hugh Grant's character is
Well,
just
especially to him who just owns a travel bookshop.
Yeah, and he's just the average guy, and so he bumps into her, or she bumps into him. They exchange and even have a kiss. Then they separate, and so this is the only chance for him to get to meet again this high profile actress. But he has no experience in how this is gonna go and how she can be approached, and she like without telling him, invites her to the hotel room, hotel suite which she's in. But there is a press like visiting there happening, and so the initial direction is really this: the like unexpected turn that this is actually like a press, I know, not conference, this press time where the different journalists can go in the room and
time.
ask. Yeah. And so the opposing intent is exactly this, that it's not going to be easy just to ask her out and to tell to have an honest conversation, because, and this is a really interesting thing to bring up now. It would be long, but in short, there are different types of dynamics between characters when they like talk, exchange. We call it like 4 types of debate. And so the one type is like really the basic exchange, where you get to know information from the other, like understand these biases. This is like, let's call it educational exchange. When you are educated about some information, you get to know information. Another type, and this is like more like flirting, it's like the commerce exchange, where you are like bargaining, where there is a seller and there is a buyer, a potential buyer, and the sellers want is to sell the product on a high price, and the buyers want is to acquire the thing, the product on the lowest price possible. And so they bargain on whether they would really want to sell to one, or whether the buyer would really want to buy the product or not. And so they are basically, well, blackmailing each other in an unharmful way of what happens if one is really not interested in the affair, the buying, the exchange itself. And so the third type of exchange, of debate, is when the people involved want to destroy each other, want to overcome one another. And so the point of these type of exchanges is that there is really no point of, most of the time people misunderstand, and they really take it as an exchange, or as an educational exchange, or as a bargain, and make it about information, and disguise it as another type of exchange. But what they really want to do is just defeat the other one. And so this is what we call quarrel, or really harsh battle. And let's put it this way: one-on-one duel. And so the fourth type of exchange is the court exchange, or in a court trial, or play, theater kind of exchange, where the two participants are not only the two of them, but there is a third person or people that are the audience. And so the two sides are only going against each other, not to exchange information with one another, or to bargain with one another, or to defeat one another, but to defeat here again, but to appeal to the audience, who can be the judge if it's a court, or can be the audience if it's a theater play. And so the point of this, in a political race, that there are people, third persons, that have the power to decide over the participants of that exchange. Okay, so the point is that in this scene that we've seen from Notting Hill, Hugh Grant, the opposing intent is the misunderstanding, or the wrong, false expectation of a certain kind of exchange, which becomes another one. So he expects bargaining, or even educational exchange with Julia Roberts' high-profile, famous actress character, bargaining in a way of flirting. So acquiring some product, or acquiring getting a date, a rendezvous. And so when they are like supervised or just like there is this guy eavesdropping, the manager of the Julia Roberts' character. This way it becomes like, instead of a bargaining exchange, a theater-like or court-like exchange, because then what he tells, because they have to hide, that he has to hide, or he feels like the affair or the like him wanting to ask her out because he's disguised as in this occasion to approach her as a journalist. He has to look like a journalist, and he has no like knowledge or experience in that. So that like gives us the exposition, really. So the exposition is when he is put in that situation, and so what you're going to do now. Because the opposing intent was he has to be a journalist if he wants to go in, and the exposition is now he is one, but he's observed while wanting to do the secret operation. And so the outcome, which is like the punchline, try to find an adjective for this, but he's like so unfit for the task that he's unable to ask her out in the short intervals when they are not observed. And so he describes this plot as we've seen, that he wants to kiss her, and subtextually, like really in the parable, puts it fine, but then he's not able to ask her out. He asks whether she's available that night or that evening, and she says no, and he's just okay. and then he has no opportunity to do otherwise. Yeah, and so the characterization part, which is here, is basically him. Is basically the characters, the foils, and his decisions. So the characterization is always just decisions. How is he looking at, the way he's talking, the way he's shy to make the decisions, all the decisions that he makes, in how he dresses, in how he talks, in how he like decides. Those are the things that the characterization fit into the characterization note. But the characterization is really, it can be even the first note here in the sequence. It's not really part of the sequence, it's a constant. Yeah, and so this is basically the end of this current episode. So we've shown like one example, but we usually run through like a dozen of these, where we find examples on how these stories with the characters that usually are similar to what we write about, in this case not exactly, but run through their own scenes in certain genres and of certain movies. And so we try to find the language of how our story could be told. We try to take examples from the characterizations, from directions, from situations, from characters, foils, and all of this, and try to shape it as a story of its own in a genre chosen for it. And the greatest piece of work that we've managed to put together, I think, so far, was really a pastiche, even to paraphrasing one of the examples that were brought up. In that case, Wes Anderson's French Dispatch's second arc second act was paraphrased in a movie that we've made. But we're going to talk about it in the next episodes of one of them. Next. Okay, so this was us, Morgan and Matthias, and we'll come back with how the writing process is, the actual scene writing. We're going to look at scenes, and we're going to talk about table reads, on how the actors actually like read these lines, why it's important to do a table read, how do you like cast the actors, how you set up a casting, and how you if you're the higher authority, or if you're not and the actors are, how you like persuade them, convince them to join your screenplay, how you write baits for them in the scripts to convince them through the baits to join you. Okay, so this is it for now. See you next time. Yeah.
Ciao.